Stop. Don't scroll past this. Because what I'm about to tell you changes everything you thought you knew about the future of NASCAR. Imagine this. A driver crosses the finish line. He pumps his fist. The crowd explodes. His crew goes wild on pit road. Everything looks perfect. Everything looks like he belongs right there, at the front of the field, in victory lane. Now imagine that same driver is quietly planning to walk away. Not because he's slow. Not because he's losing. Not because the fire is gone. But because he made a promise. A promise to himself. A promise to leave while he's still the best. That's the situation unfolding right now in NASCAR, and the deeper you dig into it, the more complicated it gets. Because just when you think the ending is written, someone very powerful inside that same organization steps forward and says 3 words that change everything. I'll believe that when I see it. 3 words. That's all it took to blow this story wide open. Today on NASCAR Report Today, we are breaking down 2 massive stories that are happening at the exact same time, and the fact that they're connected makes this one of the most fascinating NASCAR situations we have seen in years. We're talking about a future Hall of Famer at the absolute peak of his game, a team president who doesn't believe the retirement plan is real, a teenage prospect whose entire future hangs on what one driver decides to do, and a championship organization that may be facing one of the most important decisions in its history. This is the kind of story that reminds you why you fell in love with NASCAR in the first place. So stay right here. Because we are just getting started. Before we go any further, I want to take just a second to talk to you directly. This channel, NASCAR Report Today, was built for people like you. People who don't just watch the races. People who actually care about what's happening behind the scenes. People who want real conversations about the sport we love, not just highlights and hot takes. We are a growing community, and every single person who subscribes helps us reach more NASCAR fans who deserve to hear these stories. If you've been watching for a while and haven't subscribed yet, right now is the moment. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. Because we cover this sport every single day, and you do not want to miss what's coming. This community is just getting started, and I want you to be part of it from the very beginning. Now, let's get into it. The first story today starts with a name that has defined an entire era of NASCAR. Denny Hamlin. If you were watching at Michigan International Speedway recently, you already know what happened. Hamlin went to victory lane. Again. His 3rd win of the 2026 season. And what made it even more remarkable was that he had to start from the rear in both of his most recent victories. He still won. Back to back. From the back of the field. That is not what a driver slowing down looks like. That is not what a driver thinking about retirement looks like. And yet, right there in the aftermath of that Michigan win, Hamlin stood in front of cameras and microphones and confirmed it again. His plan has not changed. He intends to retire from full-time NASCAR Cup Series competition after the 2027 season. Let that sink in for a moment. A driver who is actively winning races in 2026 is already drawing the finish line on his career at the end of 2027. So why? Why would a driver who is still this competitive, still this fast, still this dangerous every single weekend, want to walk away? The answer Hamlin gave was one of the most honest things I've heard from any driver in a long time. He talked about being 45 years old. He talked about the physical reality of what this sport demands from your body. He specifically mentioned 3 things that every driver eventually has to face: eyesight, reaction time, and the physical toll on the body. Now here's the important part. Hamlin said his vision is still sharp. His reactions are still where they need to be. But his body? That's where he's feeling the difference. He admitted that recovery during the week takes longer than it used to. He admitted that his body hurts in ways it didn't before. And here's what that tells you about how Denny Hamlin thinks. Most drivers don't leave until they're forced out. Until the results force them out. Until the team moves on. Until their speed is gone and the options disappear. Hamlin is not waiting for that moment. He wants to choose his own exit. He wants to walk away on his own terms, while he is still winning, while he is still elite, while he is still one of the most feared competitors in the garage. That is a level of self-awareness that is genuinely rare in this sport. But there's another layer to this story that makes Hamlin's decision even more emotionally complicated. The record books. With that win at Michigan, Denny Hamlin reached 63 career NASCAR Cup Series victories. 63 wins. That number ties Kyle Busch for 9th place on the all-time wins list in NASCAR history. Think about what that means. He is now sitting alongside one of the most prolific winners the sport has ever produced. And the driver directly ahead of him on that list? Dale Earnhardt. The Intimidator. 7-time champion. One of the greatest figures in the history of motorsport. Earnhardt sits at 76 career wins. Now Hamlin was completely honest when he talked about that challenge. He acknowledged that gaining one position on the all-time list is possible. But chasing down Earnhardt? Making up 13 victories in the time he has left? That is an enormous ask. That is not something you plan for. That is something you simply chase and see how close you get. This matters because it shows you that Hamlin is thinking about legacy. He is thinking about where he fits in the history of this sport. And that kind of thinking does not come from someone who is content. That kind of thinking comes from a competitor who still wants more but is also realistic about what's left on the clock. Earlier in the 2026 season, Hamlin earned a victory at Nashville Superspeedway. And that win placed him alongside the legendary Jeff Gordon for the third most victories ever achieved through 700 Cup Series starts. The only two drivers ahead of him in that all-time category are Kevin Harvick and Richard Petty. Richard Petty, Kevin Harvick, Jeff Gordon, Denny Hamlin. That is the company this man keeps. And yet he's talking about retirement. One more thing worth mentioning here. Even if Hamlin wins the NASCAR Cup Series championship this year, even if he finally captures the title that has escaped him throughout his entire career, he says it will not change his timeline. He signed a 2-year contract extension with Joe Gibbs Racing last season, and he intends to honor it through 2027. Championship or no championship, the plan stays the same. Now this is where the story goes from interesting to genuinely significant for the future of NASCAR. Because Hamlin didn't just talk about himself. He talked about who comes next. The name he mentioned was Brent Cruz. And if you haven't been paying close attention to NASCAR's development pipeline, that name is about to become very important to you. Brent Cruz is 18 years old. He is currently competing as a rookie in the NASCAR Xfinity Auto Parts Series, driving for Joe Gibbs Racing. And by every account inside the sport, he is considered one of the most promising young talents in the entire Toyota development system. Hamlin specifically referenced Cruz when talking about the future. He suggested that by the end of next season, Brent Cruz could be ready for a significantly bigger opportunity. He essentially pointed to the teenager as someone Joe Gibbs Racing may be grooming for a Cup Series seat. Now think about what it means when a driver like Denny Hamlin, a future Hall of Famer with over 6 decades of wins, publicly names your replacement. That is not a casual comment. That is a signal. That is Hamlin telling the world he has thought about this. He has thought about what comes after him. And he wants Joe Gibbs Racing to be ready. Because here's the reality. Replacing Denny Hamlin is not a simple task. This is not a situation where you just find a fast young driver and put him in the seat. What Hamlin brings to that organization goes far beyond speed. He brings decades of experience. He brings leadership in the garage. He brings credibility with sponsors, with the manufacturer, with the entire structure of Joe Gibbs Racing. He brings race-winning instincts that took him 2 decades to develop. That kind of presence doesn't get replaced overnight. That's exactly why Hamlin made it clear he does not want to leave the team unprepared. He wants a plan to be in place. He wants the organization to have a clear path forward. And based on what he said, Brent Cruz appears to be a major part of that plan. But here is where everything gets complicated. Because there is a second story happening simultaneously, and it directly challenges everything Hamlin has been saying. Joe Gibbs Racing has a president. His name is Dave Alpern. And Dave Alpern recently appeared on SiriusXM NASCAR radio and said something that stopped a lot of people in their tracks. When asked about Denny Hamlin's retirement plans, about the 2027 timeline, about the idea of one of the greatest drivers in team history walking away at the end of next season, Dave Alpern's response was almost casual in how blunt it was. "I'll believe that when I see it. That's it." That was his answer. And in 4 words, the president of one of the most powerful organizations in NASCAR just publicly questioned whether his own star driver's retirement plan is even real. He went even further. Alpern joked that if Hamlin truly wants to leave while he is still performing at this level, he may actually have to fight the organization to do it. Now yes, it was said with a smile. But jokes like that come from somewhere. They come from a real belief. And the real belief here is obvious. Joe Gibbs Racing looks at Denny Hamlin right now. They look at the wins, the speed, the consistency, the championship contention, and they simply cannot imagine voluntarily letting that go. Can you blame them? Think about this from Joe Gibbs Racing's perspective. They have a driver who is currently winning back-to-back races from the rear of the field. They have a driver who has 3 victories in 2026 alone. They have a driver whose numbers continue to place him alongside the greatest competitors this sport has ever produced. Why would any organization want that to end? The answer is, they don't. And Alpern's comments made that abundantly clear. Here's what I really want you to understand. Because this story is about so much more than one driver's retirement. This story is about power, about timing, about legacy, and about the way decisions made by one person can reshape an entire organization, and potentially the entire sport. Think about Brent Cruz. He is 18 years old. He is learning his craft in the Xfinity series. He is developing as a driver with one eye on the future and another on whatever Denny Hamlin decides to do. If Hamlin retires after 2027 as planned, a door opens. A Cup Series seat at one of NASCAR's premier organizations becomes available. A pathway that young drivers dream about suddenly becomes real. But if Hamlin stays? If Dave Alpern's skepticism turns out to be correct, and Hamlin looks at his results in 2027 and decides he simply cannot walk away from this level of performance? Everything shifts. That door closes, or at least narrows. Development timelines get pushed back. The entire planning process for Toyota and Joe Gibbs Racing has to be recalculated. That's why so many people inside this sport are watching this situation so closely. This isn't a small storyline. This is a foundational question about what Joe Gibbs Racing looks like going forward. This is about succession, about legacy, about how you manage a transition that nobody fully wants to happen. And right now, the truth is nobody knows the answer. Not the fans, not the media, not even Dave Alpern. And honestly, maybe not even Denny Hamlin himself. Because there are two versions of Denny Hamlin that exist right now. The version that talks about retirement, talks about his body, talks about wanting to leave on his own terms while he is still elite. And the version that straps into that number 11 Toyota every single weekend and proves he has absolutely no business walking away from anything. Both versions are real. Both versions are true. And that tension is what makes this one of the most compelling storylines NASCAR has seen in recent memory. To really understand what's at stake here, it helps to look at how this moment fits into the broader history of the sport. Denny Hamlin entered the NASCAR Cup Series in 2005. He made an immediate impact, finishing third in the Daytona 500 as a rookie and contending for the Rookie of the Year title. In the 2 decades since, he has become one of the defining drivers of his generation. He is one of the most successful Daytona 500 winners in the history of that race, having captured NASCAR's biggest event multiple times. His ability to perform in superspeedway environments is virtually unmatched in the modern era. But what makes Hamlin truly special is his consistency across nearly every type of track on the NASCAR schedule. Road courses, short tracks, intermediate ovals, superspeedways. He has won on all of them. Throughout his career, Hamlin has consistently been one of the few drivers capable of challenging for wins in virtually any situation. His playoff appearances have been nearly endless. His win totals have steadily climbed year after year. And yet despite all of it, the one thing that has remained out of reach is the NASCAR Cup Series championship. That absence of a title is the one footnote that follows his incredible legacy. And maybe that's part of what motivates him to keep going. Maybe the idea of winning the championship in 2026 or 2027 before he finally walks away is what keeps the fire burning. A final chapter that ends with the title. A career that finally has every piece in place. From an organizational standpoint, Joe Gibbs Racing has always been built around elite talent. The team has produced multiple champions and has consistently operated as one of the top programs in the sport. Managing a transition away from a driver of Hamlin's caliber requires years of planning, not months. That is why this conversation about Brent Cruz matters so much right now. Whoever steps into that seat next will carry enormous expectations from day one. And for a young driver like Cruz, having the support of Denny Hamlin, having the public endorsement of someone with 63 career wins, having the backing of one of the most respected figures in the sport, that is an advantage that money simply cannot buy. Here is what I know about NASCAR fans. When it comes to a story like this, you are never going to find universal agreement. And honestly, that is what makes this community so alive. There are fans who believe Denny Hamlin should honor his word. That 2027 is the right time. That going out while you are still winning is the most dignified exit a competitor can have. That the sport will miss him, but that the legacy will be locked in perfectly if he walks away on his terms. And then there are fans who look at the numbers and say it is almost impossible to believe he will actually do it. They point to drivers who have announced retirements and then returned. They point to the fact that when you are still winning, walking away feels almost unnatural. They point to Dave Alpern's comments as confirmation that even the people closest to the situation don't fully believe the retirement will happen on schedule. Both sides of this debate have legitimate arguments. Both sides can point to real evidence. And that is exactly why this conversation is going to dominate NASCAR discussions for the next year and a half. One thing I will say is this. Denny Hamlin is not a driver who says things casually. When he talks about retirement, he is not throwing out idle comments. He has clearly thought about this. He has thought about his body. He has thought about the record books. He has thought about what he wants his legacy to look like and how he wants to be remembered. But he has also shown that when competition calls, when the opportunity is there, he is going to answer. Every single time. That is the contradiction at the heart of this entire story. And it is going to be fascinating to watch it play out. So here's where I want to lead you today. The retirement plan is on the table. The wins keep coming. The team president has doubts. A teenage prospect's entire future hangs in the balance. And NASCAR itself is watching one of its biggest stars decide when and how to write the final chapter of a legendary career. There is no bigger story in the garage right now. And you can believe this, we are going to be covering every single development as it happens. Now I genuinely want to hear from you in the comments. Do you believe Denny Hamlin actually walks away after 2027? Or do you think Dave Alpern is right, that when the moment comes, Hamlin simply will not be able to leave while he is still one of the fastest drivers in the field? Drop your thoughts below. I read every single comment, and on a story like this, I know this community is going to have a lot to say. And before you go, if this video gave you something to think about, if you learned something, if you feel more connected to this story than you did before you clicked play, then this channel is exactly what you have been looking for. NASCAR Report Today exists to give you real, honest, passionate NASCAR coverage every single day. Not noise. Not clickbait. Real stories told the right way. If you are not subscribed yet, please do it right now. It takes 2 seconds and it means everything to a channel that is still growing. Hit that like button, share this video with a fellow NASCAR fan, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. This is NASCAR Report Today. We will see you in the next one.